February 27, 2012 marks the end of Yemen's democracy tale. The UN Security Council is expected to vote on Houthi arms embargo late today. Amid the militia repeated defeats, tribal leaders refused to succumb to Houthi calls for mobilization. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Shazad Dilbay. In February 27, 2012, the late President Ali Abdullah Saleh handed over power peacefully and through a general election. Not a single drop of blood was shed. The moment was one of the most important times for democracy, not only in Yemen but for the entire region. This report has more details.
Through handing over the flag of the Republic, late President Ali Abdullah Saleh aimed at healing the political rift and bringing different sects together at a table as an alternative to the strait.
I hand over the flag of the revolution, the republic, the freedom, the security and stability to a safe hand.
On the 27th of February back in 2012, the step aimed at transforming the course of the crisis into a political reconciliation through the Gulf Initiative that preceded the handover of power and stipulated that Saleh would transfer his powers through a democratic exit. The Gulf Initiative has been prepared with a Yemeni heart that understood the differences in the country and charted a purely Yemeni path with a transitional period. The pure and sincere Yemeni formulation, however, did not succeed in attaining stability.
This is made to get out of the crushing crisis that hit the country during the few past years. We stand in support for President Abdrabbu Mansour Hadi, President of the Republic, and with him all honest people of the country, sincere people who went to vote in favor of security and stability.
With the step, late President Ali Abdullah Saleh recorded himself as the first Yemeni president to hand over power to his successor after painful experiences that were in mind and were thought to be avoided and get the country out of the political crisis by making concessions. Despite his poor health after the assassination attempt at the presidential headquarters, Saleh went out to prefer the interests of the country. He charted a transitional path for only 2 years to stir the stagnant political waters.
I handed over authority voluntarily, not through sit-ins, cutting of roads, vandalizing oil pipelines or power cut-offs.
However, the preparation for the National Dialogue Conference and the preparations for the elections have been delayed due to the security imbalances and the control of the Muslim Brotherhood group over the state. The term of Abdrabbu Mansour Hadi's presidency was extended, which made the transitional period falter. New players inside and outside Yemen entered the political arena, and the sound of the gun prevailed. All in all, late President Ali Abdullah Saleh recorded himself in the history as the first Yemeni president to hand over power to his successor in an effort to get the country out of its political crisis by making concessions even against his own will.
The UN Security Council is set to vote on Monday on a proposal by the United Arab Emirates to impose an arms embargo on the Houthi rebels. With the endorsement of that vote, extra restrictions would be put on the militia as to stop their danger to Yemenis and the region. This report has more details.
War in Yemen has killed tens of thousands of people and caused a humanitarian crisis, pushing Yemen to the brink of famine. The issue that has driven the United Arab Emirates to propose for arms embargo on the Houthi militia, and they have urged the UN Security Council to vote on the UAE proposal. This proposal came after the Houthis target on Emirati and Saudi civilians, and they have further implemented several assaults by drones and missiles on these civilians this year. Analysts say that the Giants brigades and Emirati military support has turned the tables in the battle in Ma'rib and Shabwa, causing the Houthis to strike against the UAE. The violence is set to escalate further as the Houthis stated that the headquarters of international companies in the UAE will be targeted in the coming period. Therefore, the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia are urging the White House to return the Houthi movement to the U.S. list of foreign terrorist groups because of the recent Houthi attacks on the UAE and Saudi Arabia. Former U.S. President Donald Trump has designated the Houthi militia as a terrorist group, and they were blacklisted one day before President Joe Biden took over the presidency of USA, and he revoked this decision, which has worsened the situation of the Yemeni crisis. A senior Security Council diplomat said that the proposed arms embargo on the Houthi militia doesn't include asset freeze, so there would be no impact on humanitarian aid, the issue that was a concern among some council members. The UN vote on Houthis arms embargo as leaders and as a group is expected to expand. However, it needs 9 votes in favor and no vetoes by Russia, United States, Britain, France, and China.
Houthi rebels are launching missiles, drones, and target civilian areas with no regard to international law. This report has more details.
Over 130,000 people have been killed in the Yemen conflict, with millions impoverished and displaced. Yemen, already one of the poorest countries in the Middle East, has been driven to the edge of famine. Despite intense airstrikes on Houthi bases and ammo dumps, the government is no closer to recapturing Sana'a. 3 persons were killed by suicide drones provided by Iran at the state-owned oil business ADNOC during the attack on Abu Dhabi International Airport in January. This month has seen further drone and missile assaults on the UAE, prompting calls for the Houthi rebels to be reclassified as international terrorists. Despite 80% of the Iranian population struggling to survive on daily incomes below the international poverty line, Iran's theocratic regime seems hell-bent on pouring billions into proxy wars in the region, as evidenced by their funding the Houthi militia. Yemeni Prime Minister Ma'in Abdul Malik reported that recent talks in Washington revealed that the Biden administration had concluded that the delisting of the Houthis has had adverse effects. He said that the Houthi militia had intensified their lethal strikes inside and outside Yemen since they had been pulled from the U.S. global terrorist list. He said they had endangered worldwide maritime security by installing waterborne explosive devices and attacking ships, and he demanded that they be reclassified as global terrorists. A UAE embassy spokesperson in Yemen stated that this designation will help disrupt illicit financial and weapons networks feeding the Houthi terror machine. It will add mounting pressure on the Houthis to engage in UN-led peace efforts that can end hostilities in a war that has gone on for far too long.
A human rights center revealed that the Houthis committed more than 1,540 violations against civilians in Al-Baida during the past year. In its annual report, Rust Center said Al-Baida witnessed during the past year an increase in the volume of violations, most of which coincided with the rise of military operations, as well as direct and indiscriminate attacks against civilians. The report pointed out that the violations included extrajudicial killings and arrests. A landmine left by the terrorist Houthi militia exploded in a car inside a crowded residential neighborhood in Hodeidah. Local sources said a Houthi mine exploded while a civilian car was passing, which led to the burning of the car, but its driver survived. The Massam project for demining removed more than 7,000 mines in February. Since its operation in 2018, Massam has removed more than 300 mines and explosive devices in parts of Yemen. Local sources revealed a complete failure for the Houthi militia to mobilize more fighters due to its huge losses on various fronts. The sources said the chiefs of the tribes are refusing the rebels' calls for more mobilization of fighters in different fronts. The Houthi militia launched a missile attack on a residential village south of Ma'rib, northeastern Yemen. According to sources, the Houthi bombing caused damage to citizens' homes but did not cause any casualties. Military sources said the government forces targeted a vehicle and 2 crews belonging to the Houthi militia northeast of Taz. The government forces managed to stop an infiltration attempt by the Houthi militia, leaving a number of Houthis dead and injured. In turn, the Houthi militia targeted residential homes in the same area with artillery shells, causing material damage without any human losses. Coming next. Amid government failure to act, injured soldiers' suffering seems to see no end.
راتب الواحد 120 ألف، والكيس الدقيق ب18 ألف، والكيس السكر اليوم ب20 ألف. كم يعني بيعطي هذا الراتب كامل كيس سكر وكيس دقيق؟
المواطن اليمني يعيش في أزمة إنسانية وغذائية مؤلمة من غلاء الأسعار وفحشة الأسعار وغلاء الصرف والعملة الأجنبية في البلد.
حالتي الحين حالة لما ندب 12 كيلو ما نقدرش ناكل الأكل داخل، ما احنا بحاجة صعبة.
Welcome back. Dozens of Yemenis, including students and residents with their families, suffered difficult conditions in several Ukrainian cities after they left the Ukrainian capital. Yemeni media reported that many Yemeni students are still stuck at the Ukrainian-Polish border after they managed to leave the Ukrainian capital, and the Polish authorities prevented them from entering Poland. They called on the Yemeni embassy in Poland and Ukraine and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to follow up the situation of Yemeni students and their families and to work on evacuating them. Economic sources revealed that Yemen has a stockpile of wheat that is sufficient for 3 to 4 months. The sources added that the stock is sufficient in case the situation develops in Ukraine to search for alternatives. Yemen imports 1.5 million tons of wheat from Russia and Ukraine. The Yemeni government renewed its accusations for the Houthi militia for resulting in the crisis in oil byproducts in areas of control. The Yemeni rial continues to lose its value in Aden and the rest of the liberated areas after a period of relative stability. Banking sources said the dollar exchange rate exceeded 1,200 rials. The UN announced that the conflict in Yemen has displaced more than 23,000 people since the beginning of this year. The spokesman for the Secretary General of the UN expressed his concern about the dangerous situation in Yemen, which causes civilian casualties on a daily basis. The spokesperson for the UN stated that most of the displaced people since the beginning of the year were from Hodeidah, Ma'rib, Shabwa, and Taz. He added that more than 4 million men, women, and children have been displaced across Yemen since the escalation in 2015, warning that the severe shortage of funding threatens the flow of humanitarian aid to these individuals. With the story of the Yemeni conflict unfolding, large numbers of the government forces face everyday injuries due to fighting. Those injured are suffering and need assistance to pass the critical moments in their lives. This report has more details.
Amid the acts of wounds and negligence by the concerned authorities, thousands of wounded people spend their lives waiting and searching for something to relieve their suffering as a result of their various injuries on the front lines with the Houthi militia. Government forces casualties stated that all they get from the leaders during their visit to the headquarters of the wounded are expressions of praise that don't fatten or heal a wound. Every day witness an increase in the number of civilian casualties as a result of mines, explosions, and ballistic missiles.
Injured civilians in Ma'rib are suffering a lot, including people with special needs, and government forces casualties, and they receive only negligence from concerned organizations.
Damaged hospitals, shortage of staff, and essential supplies have resulted in the virtual collapse of the health sector and worsened the situation for people who suffer deep wounds and injuries due to the ongoing war.
Our injuries increase for sake of our religion and country, and to retrieve our country from Houthi militia who've disseminated corruption among us. These wounds will not stop us to continue our endeavors to recover our country, regardless of any sacrifices.
Jalal, a wounded soldier who spent his time on the battlefronts until he was hit by a Houthi mine in one of the sites, which led to the amputation of his legs. He spent years suffering the deprivation of movement, although he got artificial legs to help him to move. However, it made it harder on him to walk.
I was injured in 2016 due to mine explosion in Al Jawf Governorate, and we couldn't install artificial legs center in Ma'rib as they have zero health care service.
Wounded civilians wish that the government will implement their promises in the health sector, which remain trapped in the drawers, so that these heroes would continue to swallow the bitterness of disability and deprivation of their right to treatment.
Iran not only plays a destabilizing part through arms supply, it also poisons Yemenis by providing them with counterfeit medicines, which deepen their suffering. This report has more details.
The activity of elements affiliated with the Houthi militia has increased in smuggling and counterfeiting drug brands and selling them in local markets at double prices, in addition to extorting the owners of pharmacies and drug stores to pay royalties in exchange for turning a blind eye to smuggled and fake medicines, which are sold at prices that exceed the prices of safe medicines. The prices of medicines are witnessing an unjustified rise in the local market. Medicines for chronic diseases such as heart and diabetes, their prices exceeded 300% in the capital Sana'a and the areas under the control of the Houthi militia. The Houthi militia has established special laboratories for counterfeiting expired and banned Iranian medicines. These laboratories are spread in the capital Sana'a, and their tasks are focused on distributing expired Iranian medicines, after which large quantities of them are stored in stores inside the capital in the city of Damar. These medicines are brought by sea to the port of Hodeidah and from there to Sana'a, where the Houthi militia, under the supervision of influential leaders, changes their expiry dates and distributes them to the drug market in the Yemeni governorates on the ground, as if they are safe medicines. Through the government of state institutions since 2014, the militia has fought major drug importing companies approved as agents for international companies, forcing them to stop their activities to act as a substitute for them, as well as to establish fake companies and import poorly specified medicines from Tehran. The same sources stated that the Houthi drug militia mafia had copied products with well-known international quality specifications by addressing laboratories in India and Iran that reproduced medical products and children's supplies.
Here's a reminder of the main headlines. February 27, 2012 marks the end of Yemen's democracy tale. The UN Security Council is expected to vote on Houthi arms embargo late today. Amid the militia repeated defeats, tribal leaders refused to succumb to Houthi calls for mobilization. This is the end of the news. Thank you for watching.